What's going on, everybody? It's EricRayweather back here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Rams-Saints NFL or NFC Championship game yesterday. Obviously, most of y'all that's been around here for a while, y'all know I'm a Saints fan. You know, my YouTube picture is me in a Saints jersey. My YouTube banners got Saints players on it. Most of y'all know I'm a Saints fan, but I'm a football fan too as well. So we're going to talk about the game. Obviously, we're going to talk about the no call. I mean, you have to talk about that. You can't avoid that. I saw in a movie once it said the best way to tell a story is to briefly start at the end and then you go to the beginning and kind of tell the whole story. So that's what we're gonna do. So obviously y'all saw it. We all saw the no call. Probably the worst, no call in NFL history. I don't even think probably. I think it's a definite. Um, and I try not to be a biased fan as much as I can. I hate blaming refs. I'm always the first one to say, like, you can't put the entire games on the refs because you have to look at all the missed opportunities you as a team had in that game. And I definitely think the Saints had missed opportunities yesterday. Do I think they played a bad game? No, I don't. I don't think the Rams played a bad game either. I think they both played good enough to win. And both offenses weren't as good as they had been throughout the regular season, but I think that's normal when you get to playoff football. I think just because the offenses struggle a little bit more, I don't think that means the teams are playing bad. I think that means the defenses are playing better. And you have two great teams going up against each other. There's going to be a struggle. That's part of playoff football. You rarely see playoff football just big-time shootouts. You see the defense step up. You see the struggle happen. So I don't think either team played bad. I think both teams played well enough to win. I'm taking nothing away from the Rams. I don't think the Rams played a bad game and didn't deserve to win. But I think that call was the game because at that point of the game, if the correct call is made, the Saints win the game. I mean, you would have had to block the field goal. And yes, that could have happened. We'll never know. But I mean, you're talking about you take three knees, you're pretty much running the clock out. You're kicking a field goal that is, shorter than an extra point. Shorter than an extra point. So I don't think they're missing that. And it's frustrating because you don't get a clearer call than that. I mean, I even have a picture here. So I circled both of the refs. You got, I think this is the line judge right here, and then you have the back judge or whatever. I don't know what the correct terms for them are, but they're literally standing 5 to 6 yards away from the play, both at great angles to see it happen. It's PI, it's helmet to helmet. Now, even if you want to say, like, well, it was kind of close and, could have been a judgment call and pass interference, even if you want to argue that, it's clear helmet to helmet. And the NFL swears by player safety. They make such a big deal about player safety, and you don't call that. That's crazy to me because you see, helmet to helmet, calls thrown all the time when players lead with their shoulder, but it's so bang bang that it looked helmet to helmet in real time, and they throw the flag if it even looks like it's close. This was as blatant and as close. You couldn't have been any closer to it to make the call, and neither of them called it. And I'm not like a conspiracy person. I know some people are saying like, oh well, LA's a big market. They just got two teams. They want one of their teams to be in the Super Bowl, and I get all that, and I don't usually buy into that kind of stuff. I really don't. Somebody tweeted this video, and I just saw this not that long ago for the first time, and this to me is wild. Okay, is you're gonna see here the guy on the back end come in, the ref number 60, and he's gonna tell the other ref, he's like, don't throw the flag, and he's very adamant about it. He's like, do not throw the flag, don't do it. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy to me. He's literally running at him saying, no, don't throw the flag. And then he does this with his hand. And what I think he's meaning when he does that is he's saying the ball was tipped. So you can't have PI if the ball is tipped. And the ball quite obviously wasn't tipped. But even if he thought the ball was tipped, it's still clear helmet to helmet. So there's no excuse for it. And there's only two other instances that even are in the same realm of this, and that's the Tuck rule and the Des Bryant catch no catch a few years ago. And even Skip Bayless brought this up, and I almost never agree with Skip Bayless, and I'm not agreeing with him just because it happened to my team, because I thought of this before I even saw him say it or heard him say it. But Tuck rule and the Des Bryant catch, with both of those, there's some debate. They're so close. They're so close. They're hard calls to make. There's debate. Tuck rule, the NFL even stood up to it and said it was the right call. That's the rule. They stood by it. And I think the Raiders got screwed in that instance, personally. The NFL stuck by it. And it was a tough call. It was so close. It was hard to make. By the rule, tough call. Des Bryant catch, same thing. I don't think it was a catch because the way the rule was at that time, I don't believe it was a catch. The rule was bad. Never agreed with the rule. I don't think anybody did. The rule was terrible, and they eventually changed it and got it right. But by the rule at that time, I don't think it was a catch. But it was more about the rule being bad than, what's a catch, what isn't a catch. With this call here, there's no debate. It's clear as day. You got two guys standing there, and this is supposedly the best crew. And they were terrible all day, and we're going to get into that because they missed tons of calls for both teams all day. Saints got away with stuff. Rams got away with stuff. A lot of things that weren't called. They were holding the flag yesterday, and typically in playoff football, you like that. You're like, yeah, let them play. But if a foul is a foul, you throw the flag. If it's a foul, throw the flag. If there's some that are really ticky-tack and it's hard to call, you let those play every time in the playoffs. I agree with that. But it's like this crew was so scared to get involved. And typically, you hate seeing refs get too involved in a playoff game. But when blatant things are happening, face masks are happening, roughing the passer is happening, holding is happening, clear holding, you have to call these flags. You have to. There's too much at stake. There's too much on the line. Think if this was like a regular season, for example, and a team was 7-8. And if they win, they go 8-8. That's technically a winning season. And let's say that 8-8 would have snuck them in as a wild card. And this same call happened at the end, this no call, and they lose the game. They go 7-9. Coach is fired. Coordinators might get fired. QB might lose his job. That's a real thing that could happen. There's so much at stake, and there's like no consequences for the NFL. There's no consequences for the ref. Player does anything wrong, he gets fined. Players can't do anything. Coaches get fired. Sean Payton got suspended over the bounty thing years ago, and there was no proof that he knew anything about it. And they were like, we don't care, you're suspended. And then it even came back later that, we won, the appeal on that. It was like, there's really not enough evidence about this. There really wasn't nothing there. And, that could be debated, forever, and that's fine. But I'm saying, like, even when there was, like, even a possibility, they were like, nah, you're out of here. But when they blatantly mess up and get things wrong, and they're standing there right at it, they're looking right at it, and they're getting things wrong, there's no consequence for these guys. And that's just crazy when there's so much on the line. So, aside from that, let's just talk about the game now. I think, like I said, both teams played good enough to win. I think both teams could have been better. But like I said, it's playoff football. You're going to see good defenses adjust, man. I didn't expect to see a shootout. I expected a score exactly like we got, low to mid-20s. Or, somebody in the low 20s, somebody, like 21-17, 24-20. Like, I expected something like that because defenses are coming to play. Adjustments are being made. You're not, players are tired. It's a long season. You're not going to see the high flying up and down the field typically this late in the season when you have good teams matching up. First drive of the game, Saints left points out there. They dropped a touchdown pass. Drew Brees put a dime on Dan Arnold. Dan Arnold's an undrafted wide receiver turned tight end. I expect him to drop passes. I don't like it, but I expect it because he shouldn't even be on the field. And he dropped it. That was huge. We get the pick. We got good field position. We have to settle for another field goal. If we get one of those touchdowns, could be a different game. Rams adjusted very well to the Saints. They didn't let Mike Thomas do anything yesterday. He had 200 in the first meeting. They were like, we're not letting that happen today. And it was a great defensive call by Wade Phillips. Obviously, to keep Talib being back helps, but he was doubled almost every play. And even on, he was bracketed. And on some plays, I was watching the breakdowns, on some plays, he was even, they had 3 guys on him in certain situations. Smart. Make the lesser guys beat you. He had very few one-on-one opportunities yesterday, so they took him out the game. Kamara had good success for the first couple, quarters and a half. He was on little option routes. They were putting a linebacker on him. Those guys can't check him. If he runs an outer end, very hard to check him. He had a lot of catches. He moved the ball. After about 2.5 quarters, they started doubling him more. They even started pressing him off the line, not letting him get a clean release. So he couldn't just get a clean release and get open quickly. And that's when the offense started to slow down because then you're expecting guys like Dan Arnold, Traquan Smith to get separation. And those guys aren't capable of doing that because they're not those top-tier type of players. And, of course, you got Ted Ginn, but he's mainly a deep threat. And Brees' arm is just not there no more. He can't get the ball deep anymore. You saw it last week, first play of the game. Ted Ginn had a touchdown. Brees couldn't get it to him. It got picked. So the offense is already limited. And if you could contain our run, which the Rams did very well yesterday, and you got Sue and Donald. It's hard to run on those guys. You contain our run, you can slow us down because you take away the run, which means the play action is less deadly. It's you don't have to respect the play action as much, and you already don't have to respect the deep ball. You're willing to let Drew Brees take those deep shots. You're almost willing to let him have that because you'll take those chances because his arm isn't there anymore. So you play everything short. You double Kamara, you double Mike, and you say, okay, Breeze, you're gonna struggle to run the ball. But you got to stick with it because you can't abandon it. You're going to struggle to run, and you got to depend on Dan Arnold and Traquan Smith right now. And maybe Ted Ginn gets open here or there. Let's see if you can get him the ball. And that's a smart defensive game plan. That's kind of how the Cowboys played us when they beat us. Other teams that have slowed us down have played us that way. That's how you have to play us. We need another weapon, preferably a tight end, in my opinion. I don't think a number 2 wide receiver, I don't think there's a lot of good options out there right now for us to get at that spot. And because Breeze's arm is so limited, I don't think that's going to be the big thing that changes. I think you need a tight end that is a legit threat, because that takes some of the pressure off of Mike or Kamara. If you have a tight end that's a matchup problem on linebackers, and Kamara is a matchup problem on linebackers, well, you can't double them both. And I like Drew Brees to find the right guy in those situations. But right now, only having 2 guys and not that third guy is really tough. So after the first, 2.5 quarters, we really didn't have much offense until Ted Ginn caught the bomb late. That was like the prayer we needed. And it was like, okay, we can take this lead, hopefully run some clock. People were saying, Peyton shouldn't have threw it on first down. At first, I agreed. I say, man, run it 3 times, kick the field goal. But you still would have gave the Rams about a minute 10, a minute 15 with no timeouts. And all they need is a field goal. And they've got one of the best field goal kickers who very clearly can kick long field goals. Yeah, I understood why he threw on first down, and the throw was there, but it just, I don't know. I don't really know what happened there, but it went incomplete, and that hurt. But the third down happened. That call pretty much ends the game. We hit the easiest field goal ever, that you could ever have in that situation, and you go on. And again, we had a chance in overtime through the pick, but there was roughing the passer on that wasn't called. Drew Brees got smacked in the face by Dante Fowler as he's releasing the ball. That's why the ball floated up in the air like that and got picked. That wasn't called. And, of course, a lot of Rams fans came out and said, well, there was a lot of things that weren't called in the Saints, and I'll point those out, and they're right. But there was also just as many things not called in the Rams as well. The officiating was bad as a whole. And that's like the problem with officiating nowadays is like you either get a crew that they're scared to throw the flag or they just throw way too many. But they're never getting it right one way or the other. It seems very rare these days that you get good officiating. It's getting worse by the year, and some of that is because of the rule changes, makes it harder. But man, it was terrible yesterday. So before the no call at the end of the previous drive, Jared Goff, there was a light face mask on him. It wasn't like a super blatant one, but there was a face mask. If that's called, they get a first down automatic. They're on about the 2-yard line. They probably score a touchdown instead of getting a field goal there. That's a big one. They said we had, they didn't call a delay of game on us earlier in the game, and in the play after that we scored a touchdown. I don't agree with that one, only because if you've been watching football, you know that the offense there's a known advantage for the offense when it comes to the play clock, because the official can't look at the play clock and the ball at the same time. So he looks at the play clock. Once it hits 0, then he looks at the ball. The ball's already in the process of being snapped, even though it already hit 0. The offense, that is a known advantage the offense has, and no one should complain about that. The ball gets snapped at 0 multiple times throughout the year, every single year. That is just a known thing, because the offense gets that half-second-ish delay on that because the ref can't look at both at the same time. So the offense gets a slight advantage there, and it's always been that way, and it happens every year throughout multiple games a year. So I don't think that's a big one. There was like another face mask that was missed on Brandon Cooks that should have been called. So yes, there were things that weren't called on the Saints. But there was just as many things that wasn't called on the Rams. There was a second half, third down, Roby Coleman again. He was holding on Ted Ginn. I mean, blatant holding. A couple seconds before the ball got there, Ted Ginn couldn't release to break into his route because he was held. Wasn't called. If that's called, that's a first down. That puts us at about the 39. We're close to field goal range. That drive very likely could have led to points. We don't know, but it could have. Instead, we punt the ball because it was a third down. Drew Brees got smacked in the face in OT, led to a pick. That's a roughing the passer. Brady got a roughing the passer. The later that game, we got hit in the shoulder pad. It looked like from the angle that the ref was at that maybe he tapped his face, so they threw the flag. Brees actually got smacked in the face, no flag. Brees got launched another time that game after he released the ball. There was no roughing called. There was a hold on Eli Apple where he was going to sack Goff. He got held. Goff got the ball off. It was a good play. That could have, made that drive differently. So there was just multiple missed calls for both teams. The things that were called on the Rams, they were all fair. They were mostly false starts because it was loud. I was in there yesterday. It was loud. You couldn't hear nobody. You couldn't hear the people standing right next to you. You could not imagine how loud it was. It doesn't even tell the story watching it through TV. It was so loud in there. and they were getting false starts, and there was nothing to debate about that. They were just false starts because there was too much noise, and that happened. So it wasn't like there was any questionable things called on either team. There was just a bunch of missed calls for both teams, and the biggest one at the end where I said, you can't nitpick and go back and say, well, if this wouldn't have happened, this led to points, or this would have happened, they wouldn't have got points here, and we would have won the game, because there's so much that happens after that through the course of the game, and both teams have numerous chances to overcome that throughout the game. But when you were at that point of the game, they were tied, both teams at that point, the point is they both played good enough to win the game. They were tied, and the Saints were in the driver position with the clock where it was, and that call prevented them from being able to win the game. It prevented them from being able to kill it in regulation and get the W with the easiest field goal you could ever possibly ask for. And that's just the truth. Because some people are saying, oh, well, what about when y'all played the Steelers in Week 15? They called PI on Kamara on the goal line that wasn't PI. It was a bad call. And that's just a very different thing to me, because when you're talking about the first drive of the game, yeah, we got gifted 7 points out of that, and we won the game by less than 7 points, so people point to that play. I get it. But you had a whole game that unfolded after that. The Steelers led in that game with the ball late multiple times, and they fumbled the ball. They led late again with the ball because we were failing to score. They went for it on fourth down, didn't get it. And then we finally get a lead, and then they still have a chance to go win it again, and they fumble it again. So when the game unfolds like that, I look at that and say, you had so many chances to win this. You were winning and had so many chances to put it away, and you didn't. Don't look back at the flag in the first quarter and say this is why we lost, because I don't think that's fair. But when you have a tie game and both teams played well enough to win, and the Saints, even though they could have played better, I will tell you that, be the first person to tell you that, they could have played a lot better. They were still in position to win, and that call should have been made, and they should have been able to win with the right call being made, and it wasn't. So, nothing away from the Rams. Rams played a good game. I don't think that the Rams don't deserve to be there. They played well enough to be in the Super Bowl, but that call, that call should have had us probably in that position over them. But they played a good game. They played us well. Jared Goff played really good in that environment, as loud as it was. He started slow, but he made the big plays he needed to make. He didn't get too rattled. He really didn't. He didn't make too many terrible throws yesterday. So, I give them all the credit in the world. They're not a bad team by any stretch. I just think you got to get the calls right going forward. People are saying, "Oh, let teams challenge," and I don't know. I don't know what the correct thing is. I think you got the guys upstairs watching it. If they see something that's just a complete blatant miss, I don't care if it's final 2 minutes or if it's in the middle of the game. If something is blatantly missed, they should be able to step in and say, "No, look at this. Like, y'all messed this up." Roughing the passer is called, but it shouldn't have been called, or vice versa. Same with PI, not for holding and things like that, but if it's like big, personal foul type stuff, PI stuff, spot penalties, catches, fumbles, turnovers, they should be able to step in and say, no, we're all seeing what really happened here. We're not going to just let this continue like it shouldn't. Like, it just felt like some WWE type stuff. That's how cheated it felt. Like, they're both standing there watching it and nothing. No flag. And you have the guy saying, no, don't throw the flag. Feels like some WWE type stuff. Feels like you got the referee turned his back, we got hit with a steel chair, and he turns around like, oh, I don't know what happened. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, the guys upstairs watching should be able to say, no, look at this and get it right. They do it in the NBA, and it's in the final, I think, couple minutes in the NBA. So I don't know. You go down that rabbit hole, and you don't know where to draw the line. But we're all watching the same replays, and there's no way we should all look at this and have to pretend like, oh, stuff just happens. No, both of these teams, any team, you want to get it right. Get all the big calls right. You can't get everything perfect, but you should be able to step in at something that's blatant. You see somebody catch a pass, and they're like, oh, it's, that's not a touchdown, or not a touchdown. Let's say that's not a first down. It's a big fourth down conversion. You catch a ball, and they call it a catch, but it's clear on the replay that it wasn't a catch. But you don't have no time. You don't have no challenges left. Like, it shouldn't be on the coaches to challenge all the things that the refs get wrong. The refs get way more wrong than coaches have challenges. So now if you're saying, oh, well, you can challenge penalties now as a coach, you got to say, well, do I challenge this play that could lead to points, or do I need to save this challenge because you might blow a call late in the game that I'm going to need more there? Like, I don't feel like that's fair to the coaches to have to say, when do I hold this flag and when do I don't? If the people upstairs see that the guys on the field got it wrong, they should be able to step in and say, no, get it right. It should be about getting it right. The NFL says that You know, they're the best league in sports. Well, they're not. Not with this officiating. You need to get it right. You got sports book sites literally refunding people's money over this. I've never seen this kind of an uproar over a missed call. It wasn't this bad for the Tuck rule. Wasn't as bad for the Des Bryant catch. It's never been as bad. They're refunding people's money because of how bad the call was. And because of that, they're now going to file a class action lawsuit against the NFL because they're losing money, but they feel like in order to be good, to do good business, they got to refund these people that bet on the Saints because it was that bad of a no call that they feel like they have to do good business. Like, when have you heard of sports books giving money back? Like, that never happens. You know what you do when you bet. You know refs are going to ref, and they're going to mess up, and you know that when you bet. And they could say, yes, tough, you lost. They're refunding people's money as good business, but they're going to file a class action lawsuit against the NFL because it was such a bad call. The fact that they couldn't get that right is huge. This is even something someone just tweeted. These billboards just went up in Atlanta, not New Orleans, in Atlanta. It says NFL blew it. There's another one that says Saints got robbed. Like, I've just never seen this kind of an outroar. I've never seen this kind of an outroar over a missed call. This league hasn't even made a statement yet. Goodell hasn't said nothing yet. It's like the pressure's on him. Like, people are talking about replaying the game from that point because, you know, it's in the rule book. I didn't even know that was in the rule book because I've never heard this brought up before. And I don't necessarily think they should replay the game. Like, it is what it is. It's over, man. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't want to be like, no, I want to replay the game. But the fact that it's even a talking point, you've never heard that be a talking point before. I've just never seen this much of an uproar and everybody in such an agreement. Even people that don't like the Saints and, like, you know, that are glad they lost because maybe they're a division rival and they're like, haha, the Saints got screwed. But they're acknowledging we got screwed. Even Rams players, Roby Coleman, you never hear players admit that, like, yeah, I committed the penalty. They'll always say, oh, you know, the refs called what they called, you know, respect the ref's decision. They never admit it. Roby Coleman said, yeah, I got there early. I thought I gave up a touchdown. I got there early, tried to prevent the touchdown. Michael Brockers, defensive end for the Rams, they asked him, these are direct quotes. He said, what are you going to remember most about the game? And he said the no call. He's like, you know, like, on one hand, I respected the refs. You know, we're trying not to get involved and make a name for themselves and, you know, put the game on them. He's like, but they definitely gave us one there. Like, Rams players are acknowledging that, you know, they got away with one. And you never see that. You never see that. You always see them just kind of be like, hush, hush, like, you know, officials, you know, that's on them. It's not for me to make that decision. Not for me to make that call. So that's just crazy to me. And I don't want to use it as an excuse. Like I said, Saints could have been better. Saints could have been in a better position and not have to rely on the refs. You never want to let it come down to the refs. But the point is, all that aside, Sean Payton said it, and I agree, we played well enough to win. And that's really all that matters. When you play well enough to win and a call like that prevents you from being able to win, it's a very big deal. And when it was so blatant and not called, it looks really bad on the league. And the fact that Goodell hasn't said anything yet, I feel like he feels the pressure's on him right now. Like, I don't know, because once he admits, because they have to admit it was wrong. The league officials already admitted it was wrong to Sean Payton. But once Goodell comes out and admits it, it's like, it's going to come down on him because of how blatant of a call it was. That's why they haven't made a statement yet. So we'll see what happens. You can drop your thoughts below. I'm really not that angry about it, in all honesty. I've seen enough heartbreaking losses as a Saints fan. I deal with it. I move on. It means the sport, you know, Saints mean a lot to me, but I can move on and get over it. You know, we won a Super Bowl, you know, 10 years ago. I got to see it, and I'm always grateful for that. And that's always what I go back to. Some people have never seen their team win a Super Bowl, you know. So I'm grateful that I got to see that. So I always, you know, I always try to look at that, and that kind of just pushes me forward. I can deal with a tough loss, but I definitely think going forward, let's just get it right. It shouldn't be about challenges. It shouldn't be this or that. We all see something happen that's wrong. They're upstairs. They see it. Let's just get it right. Let's make sure that the best team is winning. And I'm not saying the Rams weren't the best team yesterday. Shout out Greg Zuerlein. Don't know how he made those kicks, even the kick to tie it. And then the 57-yarder, I didn't think any way in earth he was going to make that. It was so hostile in there. Such a pressure kick. So hostile for the Super Bowl. He would have been good from 65, maybe further. He nailed it. I'm not saying the Rams weren't the better team. I'm just saying that if the call gets called right, I just think the Saints win. I think most people agree with that. So let me know how you feel below. We'll be back to the Madden tips tomorrow. So as always, love you guys, and I will see you next time.